this, Rascal?" Grace whispered to her stuffed raccoon. Grace was exploring near the garden bushes when her small shovel hit something hard. It was not a rock. Grace brushed the dark soil away and pulled out a long, smooth stick. It was perfectly straight and had a handle shaped like a gentle swirl. As soon as Grace's fingers touched the wood, the stick began to glow with a soft, warm light, like sunshine trapped inside. Rascal, with his black button eyes, seemed to stare at the glowing object. Grace held the stick up high. It felt light and buzzed gently in her hand. "This isn't just a stick," Grace said with wide eyes. "I think, Rascal, this is a magic sword." Grace decided right then that she was a brave adventurer on a very important quest. Grace held her new sword of sunlight tightly in one hand and tucked Rascal the raccoon safely under her other arm. "Okay, Rascal, our adventure begins now." The glowing sword seemed to tug her forward, pointing its sunny tip toward the oldest oak tree at the very back of the yard. The green grass felt extra soft under Grace's sneakers as she marched across the lawn. The air was still and quiet, except for the happy chirping of distant birds. Grace felt very brave with her glowing sword and her best friend, Rascal. "Don't you worry," Grace told the little raccoon. "I'll keep us safe." The sword hummed a little louder as they got closer to the giant tree, its light pulsing like a gentle heartbeat. Grace knew something magical was waiting. When Grace and Rascal reached the giant oak tree, they saw something amazing. At the bottom of the trunk, nestled between two big roots, was a tiny door made of moss and bark. Grace had played by this tree 100 times, but she had never, ever seen this little door before. It was just the right size for a raccoon to walk through. The sword of sunlight glowed its brightest yet, shining a golden beam right on the door's tiny twig handle. Taking a deep breath, Grace reached out and gently pushed the door. It swung open without a sound. Inside was not a dark hole, but a space filled with a soft, sparkling light that smelled like honey and fresh summer rain. Grace and Rascal peeked inside together. Grace stepped carefully through the tiny door into a cozy room inside the tree. The light came from dozens of tiny flying creatures that looked like little stars with wings. They were sprites, and they fluttered all around, their wings making soft chiming sounds. In the center of the room was a small stone pedestal, but it was empty. The sprites seemed sad, and their lights flickered dimly. One brave little sprite zipped close to Grace. It chimed in a series of sweet notes, pointing its light at the empty pedestal and then at Grace's sword. Grace understood. The sprites had lost their special treasure, the thing that made their home so bright. They needed Grace and her sword of sunlight to help them find what was missing. Grace looked down at the beautiful sword of sunlight in her hand. The light was brightest at the very tip. She looked closer and saw something she hadn't noticed before. Embedded in the end of the stick was a smooth, round stone that shone with the light of 1,000 sunbeams. It wasn't a sword at all. It was a special branch that had found the missing sunstone. The little sprites chimed with excitement. Very carefully, Grace walked to the pedestal and gently placed the glowing sunstone back in its spot. Instantly, the whole room filled with dazzling, warm light. The sprites danced and swirled around Grace and Rascal, their chimes sounding like happy laughter. Grace's quest was complete. She smiled, gave Rascal a hug, and stepped back into her own sunny backyard.